Hello everyone, hope you're doing alright, hope you're keeping safe, and I hope you're keeping sane. Now very quickly, before I go on to the subject of today's video, I just want to address a couple of comments I had on my last video where I talked about roulette systems and roulette strategies. Now there were a few comments in the comment section saying, why am I talking about this? You know, what is my business talking about strategies and systems when my channel is effectively around gambling recovery, quitting gambling and helping problem gamblers. Now, I can only presume that the people who commented this didn't see the video, didn't watch the video all the way through. Basically, the crux of the video was there is no such thing as a reliable working roulette system. But maybe, you know, given the nature of the title and the thumbnail and all the rest of it, maybe people thought that I was actually going and talking about strategies and systems and trying to sort of give some advice on how to play the game of roulette, which couldn't be further from the truth. A couple of other people said that the title and the thumbnail were a bit clickbaity, and the reason I made them clickbaity in the same way that I made the title and thumbnail of my Casinos Not on GamStop video clickbaity was I actually want to attract clicks. I want to attract views from people who are looking for exactly that. I wanted people to find my video when they were looking for Casinos Not on GamStop, so I could try and discourage them from playing at these wretched places. In the same way, people who were looking for roulette systems and roulette strategies, I'd much rather they clicked on my video than on the video of some unscrupulous so-and-so who's happy to take their money and their time and indirectly or directly cost them money, either directly by charging them 30 quid for a useless system, or indirectly because they try a system that simply doesn't work and they end up losing their money. I'd much rather they clicked on my video and watched my video that explains why I believe that there is no such thing as a working roulette strategy or a roulette system than watch one of these unscrupulous people who want to take their money. So that was the reason for that anyway. But on with today's video. Now, one of the questions I get asked most frequently, aside from why do you always wear a hat in your videos, and I think we can quite clearly see why that is now, but the second most popular question I get asked is, what do you think of casino streamers? It's one of these things I get asked all the time, and actually it's something I have covered in several videos previously. And very quickly, my opinion of casino streamers is that they are potentially harmful to people who are in the midst of gambling addiction. They could potentially, in the same way that any kind of promotion, lure people in to gambling. But I think that if we look at casino streamers in the same way as we look at gambling advertising and everything else, if we focus our attention on those, then we are indeed missing the point. Now, when we lose at gambling, we have a propensity to blame a number of factors. Quite often we blame the game. We say that the game is rigged, we were cheated, that it couldn't possibly make its RTP. If we're playing roulette, we blame magnets and cheating wheels. If we play blackjack, we might blame that the dealer's bent or whatever. We may also blame whatever led us to gambling. Maybe we blame the TV advert that we saw that got us to sign up. Maybe we blame the letter or the postcard you get through the post that says sign up for all these free spins. Maybe you do want to blame the casino streamer that you watched who got a big win or published a big win on a certain game that made you want to go and try that game. Now, all these things, I believe, are potentially dangerous to gambling addicts. I also believe that these are things that should be regulated, monitored, and made safe by the relevant authorities, by the Gambling Commission and by the government. However, if we are to look at all these factors that we blame for our gambling losses and for our gambling in general, then we are almost completely missing the point. What we need to do as gambling addicts is take responsibility in order to take control of our gambling. Now, I'm not speaking again from a place of a high horse or a place of authority. The amount of times I walked away from a session of gambling mumbling about how the games were rigged or how the bookies staff had rigged the fob tees, or they were laughing behind my back or cursing someone and saying that these big wins you see online just simply aren't possible. Whilst there are, I have no doubt, elements of gambling which do cheat you. I genuinely believe that there are some percentage controlled fruit machines that never get anywhere near their listed percentage. I do believe that there probably are bent games. There are things that are set out to take your money in an illegitimate way, in the same way there are fake streamers who are illegitimately promoting casinos using either fake money or only publishing wins or giving a skewed view of how gambling is. I don't dispute that there are things out there that are disingenuous and that aren't fair for the punter, for the player. However, like I say, to blame these factors consistently is to miss the point. We are responsible for our gambling. If we get cheated when we gamble, then yes, of course, that's something that should be illegal. It should be regulated against, and obviously in most instances it is. But it was us that made the decision to gamble in the first place. And actually, unfortunately, the further we go down this road of gambling, we generally subject ourselves more and more to potential harm and to being potentially ripped off, because we start to ban ourselves from the legitimate casinos, and we start to avoid places where actually the odds are fair and the things, are a fair representation to the player. But if we can look at ourselves and if we can take responsibility for our own actions, it's something I didn't do for so long. If we can take full responsibility for our own actions and accept that regardless of what happens when you are gambling, the fact that you started gambling was your own decision and you do have that power to make that decision, then you can then take control. You can start to take control of your gambling and start your recovery in earnest. Whilst you are happy to believe that you're being ripped off or conned or lured into gambling, then the problem is third party. It's something that you don't have any control over. You can't control, you can't monitor, you can't regulate. So therefore, you're powerless to deal with it. And this is one thing we have as gambling addicts and as compulsive gamblers, is we give gambling far, far too much power. Yes, I'm not belittling the seriousness of addiction, and I'm not belittling the psychological power of addiction and how urges can overcome an addict and force us to do something that the common sense part of our brain, would object to and would push against. I'm not belittling that. Of course, I'm in recovery myself, and I understand just how powerful addiction is. However, as gamblers, we do put gambling on a bit of a pedestal. We put it up there as such a significant and important part of our lives. This is why when we quit, we have to say one day at a time, because the prospect of never gambling again, it can be far, far too huge, far, far too difficult for us to compute. If we have gambled like I did most of my adult life, the idea of stopping gambling cold turkey and never gambling again, never having that opportunity to have a footy bet or a little punt on the fruit machine or whatever, it was far, far too big a thing for me to comprehend, for me to compute, and for me to accept that it's actually possible. So we have to take it one day at a time. But in reality, if we look behind the curtain, so to speak, gambling isn't that powerful. It shouldn't have that much power over it. Look at people who are either recreational gamblers or people who don't gamble at all. If you're next time you're in a pub, whenever that might be, if you look at people around you, the fruit machines are there, but they obviously people are aware that fruit machines are in pubs, but they don't give it a second look. It's not a part of their life, and their lives are no less complete because of it. People are sitting there in the pub watching football without a bet on it, without a bet on half-time, full-time, or number of goals, or correct, first goal score, or correct score, whatever. People are sitting there watching it and enjoying their lives. Their lives are perfectly full, perfectly fulfilled, perfectly happy, without this thing that we believe to be such a substantial part of our lives. If we can address it face on and say, yes, we do have an addiction, yes, it is powerful, and yes, it is going to be difficult, but we have to take it one day at a time and accept that we are responsible for that. We are responsible for that day and for not gambling on that day. And whatever happens around us, whatever's going on around us, whatever videos pop up on YouTube, whatever TV adverts we see, blaming Ray Winston for us having a punt on the football is the same as blaming Jack Dee and his fleet of dancing penguins for having one too many pints of John Smiths. And if you get the reference, you're old like me. So take control, seize power, forget the outside influences, ignore them, and just, if you look at them, just take it on yourself to do something else that day to control your own gambling. Accept that you have the ultimate say. Even though the addiction is strong, you still have the ultimate say. And in the interim, do what I preach on and on and on about. Get blocks in place and make it difficult. Make it so that part of that common sense, powerful part of your brain can overwhelm the urge when they arise. Do that, and you can start your recovery in earnest, and everything else, the streamers, the advertising, the things you get through the post, the fact that gambling is everywhere in our society becomes very much a secondary factor. Do not give gambling that power over you. Do not allow it to be such a big thing that we put on a pedestal as, a part of our lives. Don't be defined by it. And I mentioned this in a previous video. Don't be defined as that reprobate gambler, that degenerate gambler. Don't allow yourself to wear that as a badge of honour. I mean, I did. Oh, I'm such a degenerate, and it becomes almost a kind of a word. You kind of think, yeah, I'm a degenerate gambler. That's not a good thing. Look up degenerate in the dictionary. It's not a good thing, but that's how I portrayed myself, and that's the personality that I wore on my sleeve that entire time. But once you take that away, I'm just Phil. I'm only Phil. That's all I am, and in a sense, I'm fairly insignificant. But I am something bigger and better than gambling. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe, stay sane, and look forward to speaking to you all on the next one. All the best.